modern-day Romania. Nestled upon a series of hillsides lie the ruins of an ancient metropolis that reached its heyday nearly 2,000 years ago. Its name was Sarmiseguța, and it was built not by the Romans, nor the Celts, but another people, distinct in culture from both neighbouring peoples. They were called the Dacians, and it's from this great mountain stronghold citadel that their last and greatest king masterminded his wars against the Romans, not once, not twice, but on 3 separate occasions. His name was Decebalus, and out of all of the kings and rulers who fought against the Romans during their long history, Decebalus did so during a time when Rome was at the very apex of its power, during the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. It was a time when the empire's borders stretched from modern-day Morocco to Iran, and astonishingly, he managed to not only maintain his people's independence for close to 2 decades, but he made significant gains against his mortal enemies until he was finally defeated in 106 AD by the full might of Trajan's armies. As the Dacians had no known written sources of their own, very little is known of the early life of Decebalus. Just less than a century before, the lands of Dacia, as well as several neighbouring tribes of Thracians and Getae, had been unified under the strong rule of King Burebista, a strong ruler who himself had become an enemy of Caesar for a time shortly before his death. In the aftermath of Burebista's reign, his vast kingdom broke up once more into 5 separate states, all of which were forced to largely go on the defensive against the ever-encroaching power of Rome to the west. It was into one of these kingdoms, based in the Dacian heartlands around Sarmiseguța, that Decebalus was born. Likely of noble birth, although very little is known about any of his family members, Decebalus spent his youth at the court of King Duras, possibly an uncle who at the time claimed authority over all of Dacia, and likely had ambitions to expand this territory to revive the legacy of Burebista's kingdom. Sensing that the time was right for war, and knowing that any territorial expansion would ultimately have to be won against the will of Rome, in 85 AD, Decebalus and his uncle marched their forces into the heavily fortified Roman border province of Moesia, just south of the Danube, harrying and burning the lands that they found there, likely in an attempt to gather more downtrodden people to their banners. Oppius Sabinus, the Roman governor of Moesia, was located and promptly killed, forcing the Emperor Domitian to personally travel to the troubled province to deal with the situation himself. The Dacians were apparently pushed back out of Moesia, but more than likely simply returned home after the successful campaign. Domitian then returned to Rome to celebrate a triumph in his own honour, leaving his general and prefect of the Praetorian Guard, Cornelius Fuscus, to lead 5 legions across the